let's go ahead and turn it over to Carl Öhman. Would you wrap up our brief presentations?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. So my name is Carl. I recently, a couple of months back, completed my PhD at Oxford University, and now I'm at Uppsala University in Sweden. And my work takes more of a collective angle, I guess, than most research in this area. So the way I usually do the elevator pitch is that when someone dies, the bereaved are normally faced with difficult ethical questions of what do I do with this person's data? Should I preserve it? Maybe for my children or my grandchildren to see and take part of, or is it on the contrary imperative to destroy it, and who has the right to say, and so on. My research takes those questions, but apply them to a collective level. So not only what do I owe as an individual to someone who has passed away, but rather what do we owe as a generation, both to past generations who have passed away and left their data online, and what do we owe to future generations who are going to use these data potentially, or rather these data are going to be a significant part of their knowledge of their past. So, well, that pretty much sums up both the point I want to make, that we need to focus on this collective long-term perspective of not just what's going to be the next big steps in the next 5 or 10 years, and not quite looking at the sci-fi stuff of 100 or 200 years into the future, but rather what are the issues that are going to arise within 30 or 40 years. So for instance, who's going to own our collective digital memory? And the answer to that, I guess, is Facebook and Google. But I'll stop there, just as a brief summary.
Carl, can I just ask you to clarify whether your argument is in favor of full preservation of all data? I just couldn't quite put my finger on what the sort of future generations' collective interest may be.
So the argument is not really that we should preserve everything. The argument is that we should think really long and hard about who gets to make that call, because we cannot preserve everything. We destroy tons of data every day because those are somehow deemed worthless. But my question is, well, worthless to whom? Who decides what data is worth preserving and not? And right now, that decision is mainly or almost only within the industry. And my argument is that, well, that should be a matter that we should all have a stake in having our say in what principles should guide what data is preserved and under what circumstances.
Just a quick follow-up question. Does that mean you would give that decision to government?
Not necessarily. I don't think governments would be the only solution to open up for more perspectives. So the point is really that we should allow for a plurality of different types of values, and governments would surely see one type of value in preserving these data, for instance, through national archives. But I would certainly not want to see a monopoly from governments in having a say on how to preserve data. The commercial perspective is still relevant, as are many other types of perspectives, but we should be very wary of giving all power in the hands of one type of actor.